This is his answer to all these things. Can any of these things separate us? First one, neither death. Death, an ultimate separation. When you close your eyes and your heart stops pumping, the neurons in your brain stop firing, living organs start to cease, when all the relationships you had and all the identity of who you were seems to fade away from this earth, can that separate us from the love of God? No, that can't separate us. Well, if not death, what about life? Sometimes for some people, life can be more scary than death is. It's not the dying, it's the living that they're afraid of. What happens in my life and the mess that has occurred to me and the sin that I've committed to others in this life, what an absolute wreck I've made of the relationships and the things I've done. Can that life separate me from the love of God? No. Well, then what about angels? What about supernatural beings from heaven? Can that separate me from the love of God? Can those powerful angelic creatures where people fall in front of their face and fear and terror, they can't even separate me from God's love? You know that rulers can't separate me from God's love, he says? Presidents and kings and emperors, they can't separate me from the love of God and what he has done for me. They can't separate me from the hope and compassion that's found in the resurrection. That no matter what decree, no matter what Supreme Court there is, no matter what constitution there is or isn't, none of that separates me from the love of God. What about things present? All the stuff going on in your life right now. All the stuff floating around in your head that stressed you before you came into this place and that's going to stress you afterward. Can any of that stuff separate you from the love of God? No, beloved, it can't. Nothing that you're going through right now, no matter how heart-wrenching it is, can separate you from the love of God. Not even things to come. Okay, stuff right now can't. What about stuff in the future? What about all the stuff I fear might happen? What about all the horror stories and nightmares I picture about what might happen to my kids? What about if that occurs? What if the worst thing in my imagination was to happen in the future? Could that separate me from the love of God, beloved? No, it can't. Powers, supernatural miracles. All right, if death, life, angels, rulers, things right now, things that's going to happen in the future, none of that can separate me from the love of God. What if a miracle occurred? The laws of nature changed. The universe shifted on its axis. Every law of physics and matter was completely different than we'd ever seen before. The whole universe that we knew of ceased to exist. Even that could not separate us from the love of God. In fact, the height of the swirling galaxies, of the cosmos, of multiverses, if there is such a thing, of the spheres of heaven as far as the light years could possibly reach, cannot separate us from the love of God. The depths of the tiniest molecules, the tiniest atoms and protons and electrons swinging around each other, cannot separate us from the love of God. In fact, he says all of creation cannot separate us. It says not only cannot, not only should not, will not be able to separate us from the love of God. It doesn't have the ability to do it. What encompasses all of creation? Everything that's not God. God is the only thing that is not creation. He is uncreated. So everything that is not God, that could or would exist, cannot separate us from him. And God, the one who loved us, will never separate us from himself. This is the hope that Easter brings. This is the hope of the resurrection. That because he died and rose again, and what he has done in making us believers, nothing can separate us from his love.